This is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
Yes, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the RosterWatch Underdog Pick'em Show. I'm joined by Trashman. I'm Cody Carpentier. We're back again for another week. We just got done with a SiriusXM radio show, and today, Trashman, we're going to be talking about these picks. And I'm looking at the record the last couple of weeks. You've been hotter than Alex. I've been hotter than Alex, but you've been hotter than both of us combined, leading the way with a 9-3 record. I'm 12-7. Alex is 15-12, and as a team, we are 62%. Which, the last time I checked, and you look across the entire fantasy landscape, there ain't many people hitting at a 62% rate. Last week we were 11-4. Trashman, a couple of yours. The week before, I mean, you kind of got the Montreal screw job on the Justice Hill one there. Where are you starting this week?
And the Dalton Schultz.
Was Dalton Schultz last week?
Yeah.
He had 34, like the 34. He had 34, like the last drive of the game.
Yeah.
And some garbage time stuff.
Yeah, it was close. 2 yards, I think I missed that by.
All right. Remember to go over to Underdog today. You can get a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. You can scan that QR code on the right side of the screen, or you can go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROSTER to claim your special pick, plus first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Remember, you have to use that promo code ROSTER when you sign up. Trashman started off with one of your favorites this week.
One of my favorites. I don't know if any of them are my favorite, but I would say of the five that I picked, the one that I'm most confident in is James Cook having more, and going higher than 59.5 rushing yards. I think Cook, they have to rely on him this week. And he's gotten more than that many yards in two of the games, in half the games that he's played this season. And those games, they weren't without Khalil Shakir. So I just think I think, necessity is the mother of a lot of things. And one of them, I think, is James Cook's fantasy productivity.
With Shakir being out, hopefully the targets aren't what leads Cook astray. I do think the 59.5 number is very likable. I'm going to stay in that same game with one that I gave on the Sirius show today. That's Stephon Diggs, higher than 10.75 fantasy points, going up against his old team in the Buffalo Bills, the Houston Texans. The last 2 weeks, Stephon Diggs has been, I don't want to say like forced the football, but it definitely seems like with Tank Dell down in week 4 and getting injured in week 3, that Diggs has been kind of a focal point. Now we do presume Diggs or Tank Dell will be back this week, but Diggs had 20 targets the last 2 weeks. He's had north of 65 air yards. He's finished with 12.5 and 19.9 PPR points. Now this is not PPR. This is half PPR. So half PPR, if we get 6 receptions out of Diggs, that's 3 points. If we get 80 yards, that's 8 points. So we're looking at 11. Maybe we get a touchdown out of it. But that right there, 3 for 80, gets us to that 11-point marker, which is what we're trying to get with that 10.75. My other favorite, these are my 2 favorites, I think, over the top of the 5 I have here, is Michael Pittman hitting 7.5 targets here with Joe Flacco. Last week he had 9 targets, and it's so weird. Like even last year, when we look back at the time when Gardner Minshew entered as the backup quarterback for Anthony Richardson, we just saw Pittman all of a sudden just, hit the 14 target range, hit the 11, hit the 8, hit the 11, and he's getting peppered with targets by competent quarterback play in the passing game, which is something we didn't get out of Anthony Richardson the first couple games of the year when he was 47, 50, and 50% completion percentage. I love Richardson, but as far as Pittman's success goes, I think we go higher than 7.5 targets for Mr. Michael Pittman.
That's fair. I can roll with that. Another play like this week is Jordan Addison with higher than 37.5 receiving yards. Addison, we thought maybe he would, have to work back up to his previous production coming in from his first week since week 1, but he came in, caught 3 balls for 72 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of those being a run. This is a better secondary, but I think the better part of that Jet secondary will be covering Justin Jefferson, leaving Jordan Addison to soak up targets and get open in that Minnesota offense. So I think the 30s. So to me, that 37.5 receiving yards seems low for him.
I put Jalen Naylor on the thumbnail of this graphic for this show because we've been, proponents, I guess, of Jalen Naylor the last couple of weeks. I know now Addison is back, so the Naylor output hasn't quite been there. But I did want to say his number this week being 12.5 receiving yards, and he's the pretty clear-cut wide receiver 3 in this offense. I do think 12.5. I mean, I probably wouldn't take the 1.5 receptions because I think the likelihood of him catching one singular ball is probably there. So I guess you could probably go lower on that if you wanted to go Jalen Naylor, but I do think the 12.5 receiving yards is something you could potentially get. I could see him catching a 14 or 15-yard reception. We do have a couple of picks here from Alex. Alex did not join the show. He just got a deer. Congratulations to Alex. He missed the show on SiriusXM. He missed the show, the Underdog show right now. So slacking on the weekend as Alex tries to do his best of. But he did get his picks in for us to read off to you. So he likes Ken Walker in the Seattle Seahawks game against the New York Giants with a rush longer than 17.5 yards. So he's going higher than 17.5 on the longest rush. Javonte Williams, the Denver Broncos, higher than 2.5 receptions out of the backfield there. That's an interesting one. I kind of like it, I guess. Allen Lazard, I think I like this one the most out of anything. Allen Lazard, higher than 34.5 receiving yards. And finally, Bo Melton, who we talked about on the show today.
He must have been listening.
He might have been listening on his car ride home. What do you think of this 2.5 reception number for Bo Melton? Do you think this is potentially – I know Jaden Reed's there. I know Dontavian Wicks is there, but kind of what we've seen out of Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't want to comp these guys together because I think Bo is a little more dynamic, but do you think there's potential for a Bo Melton kind of not explosion, but just kind of target hog situation in this one?
I don't know about a target hog situation. I could see him breaking off a big play. I think that 2.5, I think that it's right there. I think it's a coin flip. What I like the most is Javonte Williams. Was it 2.5?
2.5 receptions. Yeah, that seems
I think he's gotten that in at least every game this season. Well, no, okay. So that's
hurt, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right about what is that. I mean, so he had 1 reception in week 1, 5 receptions in week 2, 4 receptions in week 3, and then 2 receptions in week 4. And this is a good matchup. So yeah, I like that. That's one I like most of the ones that Alex proposed there.
All right, one more that I like. I've been nailing these kicking points ones. Made actually quite a bit of cash the last couple of weeks on kicking points, and the one I like this week the most is Chris Boswell with that Pittsburgh and Dallas game on the Sunday Night Football tomorrow night. 6.5 kicking points. So kicking points, you get the 1 for the extra point of the touchdown, and then you get 3 for every single field goal. So really all it takes is 1 extra point and 2 field goals. And a simple 13-point game by the Steelers gets us a higher than on Chris Boswell. Another one I like is Travis Etienne, higher than 53.5. This number feels like it's come down the last few weeks.
15.5 rushing and receiving?
53.5 rushing, period.
Okay.
This numbers feels like it felt like it's come down the last couple of weeks with Etienne, of course, as the output hasn't been there. But Bigsby has shown us that the output can be there. I know Etienne doesn't look like, the Etienne of old, but I'm taking this in kind of an opportunity to kind of catch value. I don't know what the phrasing is. Catch lightning in a bottle, catch value in a bottle, I guess you might say, in being that this is a hyper strong matchup for the running game against the Indianapolis Colts, who were dismantled with a couple of matchups already this year. And I just think that we've seen Etienne bust off a 75-yarder And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that this number for ETN is just a bit low. So I'm going to go higher than 53.5 rushing yards for Travis Etienne.
That's fair. I guess maybe one more to talk about is Cam Akers lower than 63.5 rushing receiving yards. I just don't really believe in Cam Akers, like you said, and like you said, like JJ Taylor's getting run. Ogunbowale is getting run. Akers has yet to better 53 yards on the ground this season. And I just don't see him. I just don't see him besting the 63.5.
I think that's fair. You don't want to go back to the Dalton Schultz. That number's down to 24.5 this week. I can't interest you in a Dalton Schultz. You maybe pivot and go higher this week instead of lower.
I could be talked into that. But, Tank Dell being back, I think that just takes away even more targets potentially from Schultz. So, yeah, actually, maybe not. Maybe I don't see him getting that 24. He hadn't in any game previous to this week. This last week, we had the 34 yards, which he has to get in the last series of the game. So, yeah, I don't know that I do see him getting that 24 yards, especially with Tank Dell coming back.
All right, my last one, and I guess I've told you already that a couple of these have been my favorite, but maybe this is my favorite. I've always loved Jamar Chase in matchups against the Baltimore Ravens. These are some of his last games. Last year, he didn't exactly do the greatest. He had 2 receptions for 12 yards and a touchdown, and 5 for 31, no touchdown. But before that, in his first 4 career games against the Ravens, 10 for 200, 10 for 125 targets. So I'm reading off targets, 12 for 50 and 13 for 86. Those are targets. Again, the number for this game that I'm going to, though, is Jamar Chase higher than 24.5 yards for his longest reception. So one singular reception north of 24.5 yards. So far this year, in week 1 against the Patriots, he had a 28-yard reception. Against the Commanders in week 3, he had a 41-yard reception. And last week against the Panthers, he went 63. So if my Hayfield math tells me anything about trajectory, 28, 41, 63, I think we're on pace for like a 78-yarder maybe this week, something like that. So I'll take over or higher than 24.5 for the longest reception. You got anything else?
That's fair. I think I just had the Amari Cooper higher than 55.5 receiving yards, which seems well within the realm of possibility. If not for what was that stupid penalty last week?
Oh my gosh. That was so painful.
Cooper would have had a monster game. Going up against Washington, arguably the best matchup for opposing receivers this season. I think this is a good spot for Cooper.
We do have a chat in the chat over here. We got Nino saying, he says Kyron over 85 and higher than 85.5 rush plus receiving, but then he corrected it and said Josh Jacobs. So I don't hate that one. Nino, make sure you do that over at Underdog. Again, go over to underdogfantasy.com today. Sign up using the promo code ROSTER and claim your special pick plus a first-time deposit up to $250 in bonus cash. Remember, use that promo code ROSTER or scan that QR code on the right side of the screen. Just a quick recap through all of our picks. Again, you can catch all of our picks over on RosterWatch.com. I think they'll be posted up starting next week, every single week, as well as starting next week, we will be doing bonus shows for the Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football games. So not one Underdog show per week, but 3 starting next week, Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be doing a Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football Underdog show as well. So the picks for this week: Ken Walker higher than 17.5 longest rush, Javonte Williams higher than 2.5 receptions, Allen Lazard higher than 34.5 receiving yards, Bo Melton higher than 2.5 receptions. Those are from Alex. Trashman's Amari Cooper higher than 55.5 receiving yards, Jordan Addison 37.5 receiving yards, James Cook 59.5 rushing yards, Cam Akers lower than 63.5 rushing plus receiving yards, Justice Hill higher than 37.5 rushing plus receiving yards. And then for myself, Stephon Diggs higher than 10.75 fantasy points, Michael Pittman higher than 7.5 targets, Chris Boswell higher than 6.5 kicking points, Travis Etienne higher than 53.5 rushing yards. And last but not least, Jamar Chase with longer than a 24.5 yard reception. He's the trash man. I'm Cody Carpentier. Stay tuned in, stay tapped in. RosterWatch.com, RosterWatch on all social media. We appreciate you. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
This is Anthony Richardson. You're listening